Had a request about how I make my seed oil fuel. I just wanted to show you some of the things that I use. First of all, I have this old hydraulic pump that I pulled out of who knows where, and it has a DC motor on it. This DC motor is connected to a couple of leads that connect it to a battery. This battery is going to power that motor. Now I put a battery charger on it to keep the battery charged. If I disconnect this, it turns off this pump. Now the pump is taking oil from inside this metal container. It's going through these fittings, and it goes up to this little gauge that shows the pressure. Now the pressure is adjusted by this bypass valve. You can see when you open it, the fuel flows very quickly, and when you close it, it starts to restrict it because it has to go through this centrifuge. This is one of those little oil filter type centrifuges. It's not the best. It works, but not very well. It has a little bowl inside that spins around to get any particles out of the oil. Now, in order to make the oil ready, here we have an example of a couple. This is the oil as it comes from the settling tank. This is after it's been received from the food trucks, and it's run through a filter, and you can see it does have a cloudiness to it. After centrifuging, it's better. It's not perfect. It still has some darkness to it, but it's a lot cleaner than it was when it came in. When it gets to this point, then it is acceptable to use either in the equipment or whatever other diesel engine you have, including the generator. Now, this will run for a period of time, and then eventually you shut it down, and then you will open this up and see how much dirt you've collected. When it comes time to dispense, this return hose over here is then put into a container. I can do that right now. Let me turn off the power, and let me get a container. See, you can hear the centrifuge spinning down. I'm going to use this pitcher, and then what I'll do, I'm going to take this hose out, and I'm going to put it back right here. Okay, we'll go ahead and turn this on. Open this up. You can see the oil running out. So let that fill up a little bit. Okay, we'll turn it off. All right, put the hose back into the tank. And you can see this oil is still cloudy. The centrifuge is going to have to run longer. It's not acceptable yet. If you compare it to these two, it looks more like the starting than it does the final product. The other critical thing is that the oil has to be maintained at a certain viscosity. If it gets too thick, it becomes too difficult to centrifuge. And in order to do that, we have this. This is the 220 plug that's used for the welder. There's a plug taken off of a stove, and I built my own heater. Now, as you can see, probably not the best thing in the world. There are exposed terminals, but there is a ground wire, so I'm not likely to get shocked. And then we have the two terminals coming in. I welded this fitting on the size of one of these little drums here, and you simply plug this in. It doesn't have a thermostat, so you have to watch it, but it will heat up the oil just like a giant deep fryer, and that thins it out to the point where it can centrifuge more effectively. So we'll go ahead and we'll reconnect this. Now again, I haven't really taken the time to do a very nice kind of switch system, so I'm just using basically an alligator clip, which keeps falling down, and we'll just put this back. Okay, we'll go ahead and get this thing up to speed, and there we go. And you can really tell the difference because when this unit has the proper viscosity, the centrifuge will increase in RPM. If you live in a place where it gets cold, this oil can thicken up to the point where it barely even spins. So we'll go ahead and let that run. Now, I've also had a motor-driven centrifuge, which is far better, does a much better job than this rig. This is temporary. I actually, let's just say I blew up the centrifuge because it got out of balance and came apart. It went flying like a flying saucer. But again, this is the technique I'm using now. It's not perfect, but it's enough to keep me going until I can build another motor-driven centrifuge. So, those high diesel prices, well, they're not going to affect me for now. I have a nice stock of vegetable oil and I collect whatever I can find. Free fuel sounds great. There is only one thing you've got to realize. If you make a mistake, it's not that hard to destroy your fuel system. You can cause thousands of dollars of damage. And if you have a newer vehicle that has emissions controls, that's even worse. You can really cause tremendous damage. But if you're running old diesels like a generator, an old tractor, stuff like I use, this works really well. And again, you hear how the centrifuge is spinning? There's a sweet spot. Okay. And there you go. Simple, straightforward, and effective.